Growing up, Daniel always made sure Clara knew her place. He was the golden child, the prodigy everyone admired. "Our Daniel is a genius," their mother would brag to neighbors. Valedictorian, full scholarship to MIT. Clara was the practical one, as they called her. She worked summers at a noisy warehouse, while Daniel interned at shiny Fortune 500 companies. "Clara's different," her mother would explain to visiting relatives. "Not everyone can be brilliant like Daniel. She's more hands-on." The comment stung like small cuts. Clara learned to smile and nod while swallowing her pride. What they didn't know was that every grueling shift on the warehouse floor was shaping her in ways their praise never shaped Daniel. While he read about business theories, she was watching them unfold in real time. Those warehouse summers taught Clara how supply chains breathe like living creatures. She noticed how a 5-minute delay at one dock could ripple through the entire system, how small inefficiencies cost millions, how workers' instincts sometimes outperform machines. While Daniel studied case studies, she lifted them, stacked them, scanned them, and loaded them. After college, Daniel launched a startup with his MIT buddies called Flowtech Systems. It promised to use AI to optimize warehouse logistics, the very industry Clara knew inside out. Within 3 years, Flowtech had contracts with Amazon, FedEx, and Walmart. Daniel became the family's shining star. "My son, the tech entrepreneur," their father would beam at every gathering. Only 26 and worth 8 figures. Meanwhile, Clara quietly rotated through warehouse jobs like clockwork. Each one gave her deeper insight into what really worked and what didn't. Daniel would pat her shoulder at family events and say, "Still doing the manual labor, huh? Well, someone has to keep the wheels turning for us innovators." He never wondered why she kept switching jobs or why she asked such pointed questions about his algorithms over dinner. He was too busy basking in his own genius. What he never realized was that Clara had been building something of her own, something designed to outgrow him from the shadows. By 24, Clara had created her own logistics optimization system. It wasn't AI-powered like Daniel's, it was better. It understood how warehouses truly operated because it was built from the ground up by someone who had lived inside them. While Flowtech promised a 12% increase in efficiency, Clara's system delivered 34%. She started small, offering consulting services to small warehouse operators. One client became 5. 5 became 20. Soon, Fortune 100 companies were quietly switching from Flowtech to Clara's solution because it actually worked. Within 2 years, her consulting firm was generating $50 million annually. Clara reinvested everything into technology development and strategic acquisitions. But she stayed silent about her success. She still wore plain clothes to family dinners, drove her old Honda Civic, and smiled modestly when asked about her warehouse work. Daniel never saw her as competition, which was precisely her advantage. When Flowtech needed funding for expansion, Clara made sure her investment firm, hidden behind layers of shell companies, was the first in line. Daniel thought the money came from an anonymous venture capital group. He never suspected it was his failure sister bankrolling his empire. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, Clara owned 73% of Flowtech. Daniel held 15%, and his MIT friends split the remaining 12%. On paper, he was still CEO and the celebrated founder. That evening, Daniel arrived at their parent home in a shiny new Tesla, boasting about closing a $40 million deal with UPS. "Flowtech is revolutionizing the industry," he declared, soaking in their admiration. Relatives surrounded him, asking eager questions and praising his genius. Clara sat quietly at the far end of the table, picking at her turkey. "Clara, how's the warehouse work going?" Aunt Helen asked, clearly trying to contrast her with Daniel. "Same as always," Clara replied calmly. Daniel laughed. "That's Clara. Reliable but not ambitious. Not everyone can build an empire, right, sis?" The conversation swirled with Daniel's name, Daniel's success, Daniel's future. Ryan, their cousin who worked in Daniel's marketing department, kept glancing at Clara with thinly veiled pity. Then Uncle Robert spoke words that shifted everything. Daniel, you should consider letting family invest. Ryan's been talking about getting involved in something big. Daniel's eyes gleamed. Actually, we're entering our next growth phase, expanding into autonomous vehicle logistics. We could use additional family investment. Their father leaned forward. How much are we talking? Daniel tapped his fork against his glass. For about 5% equity, we'd be looking at $10 million. But only from serious investors who understand the tech industry. Ryan's face lit up. I've saved nearly $2 million. I could invest. Daniel nodded approvingly. That could work. But you need to understand this is serious business, not for everyone. Ryan turned to Clara with a grin. Good thing you're not interested in this stuff. No offense, but you need real money. Daniel chuckled. Yeah, no offense, Clara, but this is a $10 million conversation. You work at a warehouse. This is venture capital level. Ryan laughed. You're too poor to be a business partner. Stick to your warehouse job. The table erupted with laughter. Even their mother smiled gently. Ryan's just being honest, dear. Clara looked around at their faces. Daniel's smirk, Ryan's pleasure, Dad's nod, Mom's soft dismissal. You're absolutely right, Clara said quietly, returning to her turkey. I should stick to what I know. The conversation moved on while Daniel and Ryan discussed how Ryan could get 0.2% of Flowdeck for his $2 million. A steal for family, Daniel said generously. Clara listened silently. None of them knew that she controlled the company they were so eager to invest in, or that their smug dismissal was fueling her next move. That night, while they celebrated Daniel's empire, Clara was already planning its collapse. After dinner, Clara quietly helped her mother wash dishes while the men stayed in the living room, still buzzing about Ryan's big investment. Don't feel bad about not being included, her mother whispered as they loaded the dishwasher. Daniel's just try to protect you from losing money you don't have. Clara smiled faintly. I appreciate that, Mom. The older woman patted her hand gently. You're a good girl. Practical. Every family needs someone steady. Clara nodded, though inside, her mind was already far from the kitchen. She excused herself early, claiming she had a shift the next morning. Daniel barely glanced up from his conversation with Ryan to wave goodbye. Clara drove home to her modest one-bedroom apartment, the same place she had lived for 3 years. It was small, clean, and deliberately unremarkable. She brewed a cup of coffee and opened her laptop. 17 missed calls blinked on her phone, every one from Victor Hale, her portfolio manager at Meridian Capital. He had probably been trying to reach her with quarterly updates on her investments. Clara called him back at exactly 9 p.m. Clara, thank God. Victor said immediately, his voice tight. I've been trying to reach you for hours. We need to talk about Flowtech, what about it? Clara asked calmly. Victor exhaled sharply. Their Q3 reports came in today. The company is in serious trouble. Revenue projections are down 40% from last quarter. They're burning through cash faster than expected. And their main competitor just launched a superior product. Clara sipped her coffee, unsurprised. She had been quietly watching Flowtech's internal numbers for months through her majority ownership. Daniel doesn't know yet, does he? She asked softly. No, Victor replied. He's still bragging to the press while the company is crumbling. Victor continued. You own 73% of Flowtech. You could inject more capital to keep it alive, but honestly, it would be throwing good money after bad. The technology gap is too wide. Or you could liquidate your position. Withdraw everything. It would bankrupt the company, but the assets could be sold to competitors. Daniel would lose control, but you'd recover your capital. Clara leaned back in her chair, Victor's words settling over her like cold mist. If we liquidate, how much are we talking? She asked. $94 million, Victor said. Pulled immediately, it would collapse Flowtech within weeks. Clara thought of Daniel's smug grin at dinner, Ryan's patronizing words, her father's approving nod at her supposed insignificance. She stared at the steam rising from her coffee. Victor, she said finally, I want you to arrange an immediate liquidation of all Meridian Capital holdings in Flowtech. Full withdrawal. There was a sharp pause on the line. Clara, are you certain? This will destroy the company. I'm certain. Do it Monday morning. No gradual exit. Immediate notice to Flowtech's management. Victor hesitated, then sighed. Understood. This will be very public, he warned. Business headlines, tech blogs. Daniel will be blindsided. Clara's lips curved slightly. That's the point. One more thing. Block Ryan's pending investment. Put Flowtech in emergency restructuring before his funds can clear. Consider it done, Victor said. But may I ask, why the sudden move? Clara's gaze lingered on the faint reflection of herself in the dark window. Let's just say, she murmured, I had dinner with the CEO tonight, and I've decided I don't want to be in business with him anymore. Monday morning, Clara sat at her kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee. At exactly 8:47 a.m., her phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. She let go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Then again. By 9:15, she had 12 missed calls from Daniel and 6 from Ryan. Finally, she answered. Clara. Daniel's voice was wild, panicked. We need to talk right now. Clara kept her tone calm. What's wrong? Everything. Flowtech is collapsing. Our main investor just pulled out. $94 million gone overnight. Oh no, Clara said softly. That sounds terrible. It is terrible. We're ruined. Meridian Capital gave notice this morning. They want everything liquidated. I don't understand. They were supposed to be long-term partners. Papers rustled frantically in the background, voices overlapping. Daniel was clearly at the office, drowning in chaos. I'm so sorry to hear that, Clara said gently. Is there anything I can do? No, he choked. This is a $94 million problem. Dad's going to kill me. I've lost everything. What about Ryan's investment? Clara asked. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Blocked. The company's in emergency restructuring. He can't invest now, and even if he could, $2 million wouldn't save us. We need the full 94 back. There aren't many people alive who can replace that kind of money on short notice. Clara hummed in sympathy. That does sound difficult. Through the phone, she heard someone shouting Daniel's name. I have to go, he said. The lawyers are here. Please, don't tell the family yet. Of course. Good luck. After they hung up, Clara's phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. Did Daniel call you? Something's wrong with Flowtech. My investment got blocked. Clara replied simply. He mentioned investor problems. Sounds complicated. Ryan shot back. Complicated? This was my shot at being rich like Daniel. Clara typed, I'm sure you'll find other opportunities. Ryan answered bitterly. Easy for you to say. You're not losing $2 million. Clara smiled faintly at the screen. Ryan had no idea he was never close to owning any part of Flowtech, and he never would be. By Wednesday morning, the headlines landed like stones. Flowtech Systems enters emergency restructuring after $94 million investor withdrawal. Daniel's photo was everywhere. Tired eyes, rumpled suit, a man mid-storm. Tech blogs called it the swiftest fall of a logistics darling. Clara read each article over toast, then closed her laptop. Her father texted the family group chat, Let's pray for Daniel. Their mother replied with a string of heart emojis. Ryan went silent. Later that afternoon, Clara's CFO called breathless. Clara, 3 of Flowtech's biggest clients just reached out. They want to transition immediately. Clara's voice stayed even. Names? Amazon, FedEx, UPS. Accept all 3, she said. Start onboarding tonight. Put Jennifer in charge of client relations. The CFO paused. This will place us in the top 5 consulting firms in the country. Then let's behave like one, Clara answered. That evening, her father called. His voice was tight, as if holding back a tide. Clara, have you spoken to Daniel? A few days ago, she said. He mentioned trouble. It's worse than trouble, her father sighed. He lost the company. He's moving back in with us. He keeps talking about the investor, Meridian Capital. Says they wrecked him. Clara leaned against her kitchen counter, watching the kettle steam. That sounds difficult. He's furious, but the lawyers say the withdrawal was legal, her father continued. No case to bring. A beat of silence. Clara, he's digging. He's trying to see who owns Meridian. There's a name that popped up in some paperwork. An S. Morrison. Clara let the quiet stretch. Dad, Morrison is a common name. I know, he said. He's just desperate. Look, could you call him? He needs family right now. I'll call tonight, she said. When she finally dialed, Daniel's voice sounded scrape raw. Clara. I'm sorry, she said softly. Dad told me. 5 years gone, he whispered. Just gone. She let the silence hold. What will you do? Start over. Maybe get a job. Pay debts. Mom and Dad say I can stay for a while. That's good, she said. Family helps. He hesitated. Clara, last week at Thanksgiving, when Ryan joked about you being too poor to invest, I laughed. I keep hearing it in my head now. I remember, she said. I'm sorry, he murmured. Maybe being practical isn't so bad. She exhaled. Everyone has ups and downs. His tone hardened. I'm going to keep digging into Meridian. The timing feels personal. If I find out someone targeted me, especially family, that would be unforgivable, she agreed. Yeah, he said softer. Thanks for calling. Clara set the phone down and opened a secure dashboard. Numbers bloomed across the screen. Accounts, funds, subsidiary ledgers. Her net worth had crossed $400 million last month, a quiet milestone marked with tea and an early night. She checked the onboarding plan for the 3 mega clients. Warehouses in Ohio, Texas, and New Jersey would start phase transitions by Monday. She messaged Jennifer. Push for shadow runs first. Prove our delta in 48 hours. Keep ops human verified for week 1. No PR. We stay invisible. Jennifer replied instantly on it. Clara closed the lid and studied her small apartment. The second-hand sofa, the chipped mug, the warehouse uniform hanging by the door. She smiled faintly. Camouflage had always been her sharpest tool. Thursday brought a knock at her door. Ryan stood in the hallway, eyes ringed, cologne sharp. Can we talk? She stepped aside. He hovered near the table, restless. My $2 million, you never wired it, she said gently. You didn't lose it. He flinched. I would have made a fortune. Daniel said the valuation would double. Clara folded her arms. Then you would have lost $4 million instead of 2. He stared. Do you know more than you're saying? She tilted her head. About what? Meridian, he said quietly. Whoever pulled that money didn't just wreck a company. They humiliated a family. She let the words hang. Or, she said, they revealed what was already broken. Ryan's jaw worked. If I find out Morrison did this, be careful where you point anger, she said softly. It tends to find the truth. By Friday, the industry started repositioning. Recruiters poached Flowtech engineers. 2 of Daniel's co-founders posted vague statements about new chapters on social media. Clara's operations channels pinged nonstop. Pilot complete. 34% lift confirmed. Ops lead reports human override, now optional. Client wants multi-year contract. Legal drafting draft V1. Clara replied with short, precise directives. No headlines. No victory laps. Just delivery. Near noon, Victor called. You were right to move fast, he said. Competitors are circling, but your performance numbers are scaring them off. Keep our ownership structures layered, she said. No leaks from Meridian to Arkway Holdings. Understood. He hesitated. Clara, Daniel hired a forensic firm. Of course he did, she said. Let them walk the maze. Just make sure the exits go nowhere. That night, her parents invited her to dinner, just the 4 of them. The house felt smaller than Clara remembered, full of framed photos of Daniel in caps and gowns. Her mother served stew with careful hands. We're worried about your brother, she said. He doesn't sleep. Her father looked at Clara. He keeps saying a Morrison wrecked him. He saw an S, Morrison in a filing. He thinks. Clara met his eyes evenly. Dad, do you think I have $94 million to move around? Her father sighed, a sound like surrender. No, he said. I don't. Her mother touched Clara's wrist. You've always been steady, she said. You'll help him find steady again. Clara nodded. I'll help how I can. On her drive home, the city lights smeared into long ribbons on the windshield. She pulled in her lot, killed the engine, and sat in the dark. Memory flickered. Daniel's hand on her shoulder at 16. Not everyone can be brilliant, Clara. The warehouse air at 19. Loud as thunder, teaching her the grammar of movement and time. The laugh at 26. You're too poor for this room. She whispered into the quiet, thank you, and meant it. Every dismissal had been a gift, a map to power. She went upstairs, and wrote one sentence in a private journal she never reread. Never trade camouflage for applause. Saturday morning, a former Flowtech engineer messaged her anonymously. I designed a routing module. Your system, it works the way we wanted ours to work. If you're hiring, I'm listening. Clara replied through HR channels, neutral and warm. We're testing roles that match your skills. No promises, just conversations. She forwarded the profile to Jennifer with a note. Screened for humility and curiosity. Skills can be taught, ego cannot. Jennifer's answer came back in minutes. Interview set for Monday. Whisper quiet process. Clara smiled. The right people always recognize the signal. Late that night, Daniel texted, I found something. S. Morrison appears 3 times. Tell me it isn't you. She stared at the screen, then typed, Dan, I work shifts and drive a Civic. If I had that kind of money, I'd at least fix the air conditioner. Dots appeared, disappeared, returned. You're right, he wrote at last. I'm seeing ghosts. She placed the phone face down and stood at the window. In the glass, her reflection was faint, almost erased, and that was perfect. Monday, she would clock in at the warehouse at 6 a.m., scan cartons, nod at foreman, and eat lunch from a brown paper bag. Somewhere else, 3 giants would flip their systems over to hers and gain 34%. Power didn't always need a spotlight. Sometimes, it only needed a door with a lock and a woman who held the key. Monday came cloaked in ordinary things, gray skies, wet pavement, the low hum of forklifts as Clara scanned pallets at the warehouse. She wore her faded uniform and steel-toed boots, her badge clipped slightly crooked, same as always. No one here knew she was the shadow architect who had toppled Flowtech and rebuilt the industry's map in a single week. At lunch, she sat with her coworkers on the cracked picnic bench behind the loading dock. Did you see the news about that tech company going bankrupt? One of them asked, scrolling on his phone. Clara glanced over with mild interest. Can't say I have, she said, biting into her sandwich. They talked about football scores. No one looked twice at her. That was the beauty of camouflage. Its silence. That afternoon, Victor called from a private line. Contract signed, he said. Amazon, FedEx, UPS, combined annual value of $67 million. You've officially surpassed Flowtech's peak. Clara leaned against the wall between pallet stacks. Good. Keep all public-facing announcements under client names, not ours. Quiet wins. Understood, Victor said. Then his tone dipped. Daniel's still digging. He's convinced Meridian was personal. Clara's lips curved faintly. Of course he is. He can't imagine losing without an enemy to blame. Will you ever tell him? Victor asked. Clara watched a forklift glide past like a lazy shark. No, she said. Truth would only break him more. That evening, Ryan texted again. He's unraveling. He keeps saying he was betrayed from the inside. Clara replied. He needs rest, not theories. Minutes later, her phone buzzed, Ryan calling. She answered. Clara, he's obsessed, Ryan whispered. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He keeps printing paperwork, highlighting names, talking about revenge. What do you want me to do? She asked. Talk to him. He listens to you sometimes. Clara paused, then said, all right, I'll try. After they hung up, she sat on the floor of her apartment for a long time, staring at her worn rug, thinking about the difference between mercy and weakness. She called Daniel close to midnight. He answered on the first ring, voice hoarse. Clara, Ryan says you're not sleeping, she said softly. He gave a brittle laugh. Ryan talks too much. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Silence hummed between them. I had everything, Daniel whispered, and it vanished, like it was never real. Clara listened. Maybe it wasn't the right foundation, she said gently. Maybe it was meant to collapse, so something better could be built. He gave a bitter snort. Easy for you to say. Nothing about life is easy, she replied. You'll rise again. Just differently, Clara, he said suddenly. Do you ever feel like everyone underestimated you? She blinked. Every day. I wish they'd underestimated me, Daniel murmured. Instead, they expected greatness. Do you know how heavy that gets? Clara closed her eyes, leaning her head against the wall. Greatness isn't heavy, she said quietly. Pretending is Daniel didn't speak for a long moment. "Thanks for calling," he said at last, voice cracked. "It means more than I can say." After they hung up, Clara whispered to the empty room, "I know." By midweek, Clara's firm doubled its workforce. Quietly, discreetly, offers went out through private recruiters with strict NDAs. Ex-Flowtech engineers flooded in, grateful and bruised. Jennifer handled onboarding like a general, efficient, calm, invisible. Clara watched it all from the background, slipping through meetings like a shadow. Every contract signed, every system migrated, was a thread she wove into a tapestry no one outside her circle could see. She didn't want glory. She wanted permanence. And permanence required silence. Thursday night, her father called again. "He's getting worse," he said. "Daniel barely speaks. Just sits in his old room, staring at his laptop." Clara listened, letting him empty his worry. "He'll come through it," she said. "Maybe he needs to break first." "He keeps saying your name," her father admitted. "Not accusing, just wondering how you stay steady while he's drowning." Clara smiled faintly. "Tell him I just follow orders at the warehouse and eat my vegetables." Her father chuckled despite himself. "You've always been our anchor." "Anchors don't float," she said softly, then hung up before the silence grew heavy. Friday morning, Victor delivered new numbers. "With the 3 mega contracts secured and 6 more pending, your valuation has crossed 500 million. If you go public, you could break $1 billion. Clara stirred her tea. "We're not going public. Not yet. Visibility kills precision." "Understood," Victor said. "You're an unusual kind of empire builder, Clara." She smiled thinly. "Empires fall. Systems endure." He laughed quietly. "You terrify me sometimes." "Good," she said. "Terror keeps people careful." That afternoon, Clara walked past a mirror in the warehouse break room. For a moment, she didn't recognize herself. The plain uniform, the quiet eyes, the unremarkable posture. Then she remembered that this disguise had built everything. If she had worn wealth on her skin, Daniel would have seen her coming. If she had spoken her plans aloud, someone would have stolen them. Camouflage had not just hidden her. It had saved her. She straightened her badge and went back to work. That evening, she found an email from Daniel. Just 2 words. "I'm lost." Clara stared at it for a long time. Then she replied, "Good. Now you can start finding something real." She closed her laptop and stood by the window, looking out at the dark city. Somewhere beyond the skyline, her systems were quietly rerouting the future of logistics, one warehouse at a time. The world thought Daniel had fallen and no one had replaced him. They were wrong. Someone had. Someone they'd never thought to notice. Saturday morning brought soft rain against Clara's windows. She rose early, brewed coffee, and opened her laptop to a flood of updates. Jennifer had finalized contracts with 3 new regional clients overnight. Clara scanned the reports, signed her digital approvals, and forwarded a note. Maintain NDAs. Quiet integration. No media leaks. A moment later, Victor called. "We've had acquisition offers," he said. 2 major logistics firms want to buy us outright. They're hinting at valuations north of $900 million. Clara stirred sugar into her coffee. "Decline politely," she said. "Selling would be too loud." Victor chuckled. "Only you could turn down $1 billion with that tone." Later that afternoon, Clara visited her parents. Daniel was there, slumped on the couch in sweatpants, hair unkempt. He barely glanced at her when she entered. Their mother fussed over him with bowls of soup he didn't touch. Clara sat quietly until their parents drifted to the kitchen. "Dan," she said gently. His eyes flickered. "Hey, you look tired." "I am." A pause. "I keep thinking about how everyone thought I was brilliant," he said hoarsely. "Now they look at me like I'm broken." Clara studied him. "Being broken isn't failure," she said. "Staying broken is." Daniel rubbed his face. "I keep going over everything. I should have seen the weaknesses. The AI model wasn't scaling, the client feedback was getting colder, but I kept believing the hype." Clara leaned forward. "Because the world kept feeding it to you. They gave you glory before you earned resilience. That's dangerous." His shoulders sagged. "I don't know how to start over." She spoke softly. "Not by rebuilding the old thing. By learning who you are without applause." He gave her a hollow look. "Who am I without it?" "That," Clara said, "is the only question worth answering." That night, Daniel knocked quietly on her apartment door. She blinked at him in surprise. "Can I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside. He sat stiffly on her couch, eyes roaming the humble space. "It's so small," he murmured, "and peaceful." Clara poured tea and handed him a cup. He held it like something fragile. "Why do you live like this?" he asked. "You could have chased more." Clara smiled faintly. "Because noise hides truth, and I needed to hear myself think." Daniel nodded slowly, as if absorbing a language he had never known existed. "Everyone always expected me to roar," he whispered. "I don't even know how to be quiet." "Then start here," Clara said gently. They sat in silence for a long time, rain pattering on the windows. Daniel set down the tea and rubbed his temples. "I might try consulting work. Small stuff. Just use what I know without pretending I know everything." Clara nodded. "That sounds like a good place to begin." He gave her a faint smile, the first in weeks. "Thank you," he said, "for not saying, 'I told you so.'" "I wouldn't," Clara said. "You already heard it from life." By Monday, Clara's company quietly became the largest independent logistics consultancy in the country. No press releases, no grand announcements, just results stacking like bricks. UPS reported a 31% efficiency boost. Amazon requested system-wide rollout. FedEx doubled its initial contract. Jennifer coordinated the chaos with surgical precision. Victor emailed, "You've surpassed $1.1 billion in total valuation." "This is historic," Clara replied. "Delete the word historic." "We're not done." Then she logged off and returned to her warehouse shift, scanning cartons like a ghost. That evening, her father called. "Clara, Daniel's different," he said, sounding surprised. "Calmer. Quieter. He even helped your mother fix the porch light." Clara smiled. "That's good. He said you talked to him. He said you made him feel like he wasn't a failure." She watched the steam curl from her mug. "Everyone fails, Dad. Some just hide it better." Her father was silent for a moment. "You've grown into someone I don't fully understand," he admitted. "That's all right," Clara said gently. "I'm not here to be understood." The next week, Daniel showed up at the warehouse during her lunch break. He wore jeans and a simple hoodie, not the tailored suits of old. "Can we walk?" he asked. They strolled behind the loading docks where the asphalt met the tall weeds. "I wanted to say sorry," Daniel said quietly, "for every time I made you feel small, for laughing at you in front of everyone, for not seeing you." Clara glanced at him. "I let you underestimate me. It was useful." "Still," he said, voice breaking, "I was cruel." She stopped walking. "Yes," she said softly, "but now you know." Daniel nodded, tears bright in his eyes. "I want to be different. Not the golden boy. Just someone real." Clara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then stop chasing crowns and start building character." He exhaled shakily. "I will." They stood together in the wind, silent. For the first time, Daniel seemed smaller, not diminished but human. He wiped his eyes and laughed faintly. "You're the strong one, Clara. You always were." She smiled. "You just didn't know where to look." That night, Clara sat at her kitchen table, the city lights twinkling through the window. Her empire stretched unseen through thousands of warehouses, moving goods across continents with quiet precision. No one knew her name. That was how she liked it. Daniel was beginning again, softer and slower. The family still thought she was just the practical one, scraping by. She picked up her pen and wrote in her journal, "Power is loud. Strength is silent." Then she closed the book and turned off the light. 2 weeks later, Clara attended a quiet industry roundtable under one of her shell company names. Executives spoke in practice jargon about AI integration and predictive analytics. Clara listened silently, her badge showing only operations consultant. No one recognized her as the woman whose system had quietly overtaken the sector. When a vice president from a major firm said, "Ever since Flowtech collapsed, it's like the market shifted overnight," Clara sipped her water and said nothing. Power, she knew, wasn't about being recognized. It was about being indispensable while invisible. That night, Daniel called unexpectedly. His voice was calmer, lighter. "I had my first client meeting today," he said. "Just a small warehouse in Denver. I gave them some efficiency tips. They were grateful." Clara smiled faintly. "How did it feel?" Strange, he admitted, like starting at the bottom again, but freeing. No stage lights, no investors, no pressure to be legendary. Maybe that's where real work begins, she said. Where no one's clapping. Daniel chuckled softly. I think you might be right. Saturday, their parents hosted a small family lunch. Ryan was there too, quieter than usual. Conversation buzzed gently around the table. Weather, sports, neighborhood gossip. No one mentioned Flowtech. When Ryan finally spoke, his tone was subdued. Dan, I'm glad you're okay, he said. Daniel nodded, still climbing out. But I'm learning. Clara caught his eye across the table. He offered a small, private smile. Nothing boastful, just real. For the first time in years, the air between them felt clean. After lunch, Clara lingered in the garden while everyone else cleared dishes. Daniel joined her, hands in his pockets. You know, he said, I used to think success meant being the loudest voice in the room. Clara tilted her head. And now? He looked at her with quiet wonder. Now I think it's about building something that works even when no one's looking at you. She nodded slowly. Then maybe you're finally ready to succeed. He smiled, soft and honest. Maybe. Later that night, Clara sat on her couch with a glass of wine and opened her journal. She wrote 3 words, stay unseen, always. She thought of the warehouses humming with her system's logic, the seamless flow of goods she had orchestrated from the shadows. She thought of Daniel, humbled but healing, finally beginning to see life beyond his legend. She closed the book and exhaled. The world didn't know her name, but her fingerprints were on every shipment crossing the globe. By the next month, Clara's company controlled nearly half the logistics consulting market. Competitors scrambled to catch up, but none could replicate the human-rooted design of her system. She hired quietly, promoted quietly, expanded quietly. Her employees saw only steady leadership. The public saw nothing at all. Clara preferred it that way. Visibility was a spotlight. She was the stage beneath it, silent, solid, holding everything up while the actors came and went. One evening, Daniel called just to talk. I walked past an old Flowtech billboard today, he said. They painted over it. Just a blank white wall now. How did that feel? Clara asked. He paused. Peaceful, like maybe it was supposed to end. Clara smiled. Not everything ends. Some things just transform. Maybe that's what I'm doing, Daniel said. Transforming. Then let yourself, she replied. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Not even you? He asked. Especially not me. That weekend, Clara drove to the coast alone. She stood on the empty beach at dawn, the wind cold and clean, the horizon wide and endless. Waves thundered in steady rhythm, as if echoing the flow of her own empire. Constant, unseen, unstoppable. She closed her eyes and let the salt air sting her face. For the first time in years, she felt still. She had nothing left to prove, only things left to build. When she returned, her inbox was overflowing. New clients, new contracts, new opportunities. Clara skimmed them all, then shut the laptop with a soft click. For once, she didn't rush to answer. The world could wait an hour. She brewed tea, sat by the window, and watched the sunlight move across her small, quiet apartment. No one looking in would guess a billionaire lived there. That was exactly how she wanted it. As night fell, Clara stepped onto her balcony. The city glowed below, millions of lives in motion, all unknowingly touched by the system she had built. Somewhere, Daniel was piecing his life back together, this time with humility. Somewhere, her parents were still thinking of her as their practical daughter. She smiled faintly. Let them. They would never see the empire she had hidden behind silence. They would never know how close they had come to breaking her, or how completely she had remade the world while they weren't looking. And that, Clara thought, was the truest victory of all.